Hey everybody, welcome to Simulmedia Live. My name is Matt Collins. I'm so grateful that you're taking some time out to join us today. We've got a really fascinating story of, as Bob Leodis describes, story doing rather than storytelling from a marketing leader who's gone through an extraordinary experience and has very generously come on, is going to be coming on our show today to talk to us. Hey Cliff, I'm hearing in the background some chatter, so can you silence your mic, please? What kind of program we would have today with the former CMO of Princess Cruise Lines, I would have been sure that we would have been talking about an engagement that Simulmedia had with Princess as a marketing partner, as a vendor, to help advertise Princess Cruise Lines. And we actually had a great story there that we were prepared to tell, and maybe someday we'll tell it. But given the circumstances over the last 3 months and the extraordinary story that my guest today, Gordon Ho, has to tell as the former CMO of Princess Cruise Lines, and said, you know what, we've got to find a way to get that front and center and make that the priority. So I am so excited today to have Gordon Ho, the former CMO of Princess Cruise Lines. He's also a member of the Simulmedia Board of Advisors, join the show to talk about the work that he and so many of his colleagues from across the organization, across Princess Cruise Lines, have to tell, the work that they did together to address one of the earliest overlaps, I would say, of the COVID-19 pandemic and a business operation in real time and way before we had any of the information that we have today, the accumulated knowledge that we've been able to gather about how to fight this disease and how does this disease spread. And so this story is going to go back to the very beginning for all of us. And I want people to keep that in mind as they hear the story, because while we've all been able to learn so much, back then it was a very different circumstance. And I'll be reminding our audience of that as we get through it. So with no further ado, why don't we welcome Gordon Ho into our program so we can see him. There he is, Gordon. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us on Simulmedia Live. It's great to have you, man.
Great to be here.
I want to start, as I've been doing recently with the guests that we have on the program. First of all, how are you doing? How's your family?
We're safe and healthy, so knock on wood, we're doing well. Thanks for asking.
You bet. And I'm glad to see that. I want to go back to the beginning, and this is early February. You are the CMO of Princess Cruise Lines. At this point, I would imagine there's still the pervading sense that things are the way we thought they would be going into the middle of the quarter. Obviously, a great time as it gets cold in many of the northern climates for people to seek out warmer climes. I'm trying to set the mood here and trying to understand, like, as much as we can remember, what this feeling was like as business and as just people living their ordinary lives. But take us back to when you first got word of a passenger who got sick on board your ship to Japan, and what was that like, and what did it trigger?
Yeah, early February, we got word that one of our guests that disembarked round-trip Japan voyage on Diamond Princess, one of these guests disembarked in Hong Kong early and subsequently went to a hospital, got tested positive for COVID. And so we were notified, and that set in wheels motions of notifying the Japanese Ministry of Health and working on protocols for testing additional guests on board the ship. And while we wanted things to be different, that's when we did confirm that there was 10 additional guests that tested positive. And that set forth the motion of the decision by the Japanese Ministry of Health to do a quarantine on board Diamond Princess. And that really was a key milestone that set forth a number of things in motion at that point in time, Matt.
Okay, so I have to ask a question for you to answer for the benefit of the audience. You and I have already talked a bit about this, but I want to know how it was that marketing got involved in the response. We're going to dive into what that response was, and that's really what makes this story so fascinating, Gordon. But I want to know, first things first, who decided that, hey, we got to get marketing involved, and what was the basis for that decision?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like who decided. It was more about everybody jumped in, pitched in. There's something unifying about the approach of when you have a crisis, passengers and guests in need, there's a unifying thing that happens where there's the protocol that is set up and has been practiced in terms of the emergency response, where we have various departments working together to ensure the safety of the ship, of the crew, of the passengers. But I think what you had was, because this was new territory, I don't think anyone, as you said, knew what COVID would become. You had people in communications and social media and content creation and marketing all working together to ensure, I would say first and foremost, probably one of the biggest responsibilities was really consistent, transparent, factual communications, because everybody wanted to know. Everybody was desperate for information, both passengers, loved ones, other stakeholders. And so I think that was probably one of the critical responsibilities, is to ensure timely, accurate communication and all of that entailed.
So actually, this is a perfect segue to one of the visuals, Gordon Ho, that you prepared for the program today, which was in Cliff. It's the second image. It really breaks down and shows some of the communication efforts that were underway. Cliff, if we could pull that up and we'll talk to it.
I don't think that's it.
That's not it. That's from a previous show. We'll get that right. But Gordon, you talked about this being a collaborative effort across different stakeholders. And obviously there's a role for IT, there's a role for marketing. And within marketing, we know that there's a bunch of different, folks.
That's not it.
And,
Cliff, that's not it.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and take that? Yeah, so from a different program. So tell us about, specifically, what did you identify as the scope of marketing's involvement, and if there were obvious points of overlap with other parts of the organization, how did you then interact with, for example, an IT department, and where would you, in what areas would you have collaborated?
Well, I think that everybody was working together. I mean, there were certainly chain of commands where people were basically told to, do different areas. There's people responsible for communicating with the ship. There's people responsible for making sure everybody has a chance to weigh in on the communication. So I think one of the things that, in terms of coordination, it's something simple that I think we're all doing. It's amazing, Matt, everybody working from home now is doing collaboration through technology. And I think that we were still working in the offices at the time of this in February. And I think, kudos to our head of communications, Brian O'Connor, who pushed for all of us to use Microsoft OneDrive, so that, and whatever tool you use, the idea that everybody had the ability to share and look and provide feedback on these real-time communications. I think that for anybody who's dealt with a crisis, part of what's happening is there's things happening so fast. And you're trying to get information real time from different parties. Let's say the ship, passengers are a source of information. There's things that they see and they are posting or sharing in real time. So how do you take this information, process it, centralize it to an extent so people can then act upon it? And I think that's, in today's age, as we all try to figure out what's the best way to take data, in this case, input from all the stakeholders, and be able to act upon it. And something as simple as, say, OneDrive or whatever people use, so that people have shared documents, can real-time input in it, react to it, provide it out so that we can get it approved out, because things can get slowed down, right? If you're not sure about approvals, if you're not sure about, has someone looked at things, et cetera, that extra 10 minutes or extra hour or half day it takes to get something out can make a big difference in terms of meeting expectations and getting information out. So I think that was a critical thing